Hi, everyone. I'm Jeanette Mulvey, the editor-in-chief of Co. by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We know there's a lot going on in the world today, so we thank you for taking the time to join us. Over the last 2 years, we have hosted virtual events that supported small business owners through the pandemic, recovery, and rebuilding. Now we're excited to welcome you to the first episode of our new co-series, Start, Run, Grow, which is designed to help you grow your business and thrive in the coming years. And if you're just starting out, we've got you covered too. As you probably know, we've seen a record number of new startups forming over the last year. And today, we'll give you the tools you need to join that trend and start your own business. We'll hear from emerging business owners on their startup journey and learn key steps for building a business plan. And to get you inspired, we'll close today's session with an interview with a founder who has turned his idea into a booming retail business and attracted partnerships with major brands. As we go along, you can ask questions of the speakers and engage in our polls by using the tab on the right side of the screen. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors, Dell, FedEx, Iron Mountain, MetLife, and Oracle NetSuite. We appreciate your partnership in this series. We'll start today's discussion with two new small business owners who are here to tell us how they got started and what they have learned on their journey so far. So please welcome Taylor Tankson, who is co-founder of Tribe and Oak, based in Brooklyn, New York, and Raquel Wilson, a certified financial education instructor and founder of Raise the Bar Investments in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Thank you both for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited.
And to the audience, don't forget, if you have questions, you can type them into the right-hand side of your screen. So Taylor, let's start with you. Tell us about your business. The audience doesn't know what you do, so tell us about your business and how you got started.
All right, so I'm Taylor Tankson, and I'm co-founder of Tribe and Oak, along with Kareem Wallace. And we are a luxury home essentials brand and e-commerce store. We specialize in bringing vegan and sustainable products to our communities at an accessible price. We started our business like other businesses during this crazy pandemic. So picture it, March 2020, I'm going to Australia for a work assignment for my day job. And 3 weeks later, the world is hit by COVID-19. My 6-month trip turns into a 10-month trip. And I returned around Christmas of December 2020, and Kareem and I are in a relationship. So we were trying to do things at home to connect back. I came back to New York City where there were no vaccines yet. You couldn't do much outside. So doing things in the house was the safest thing to do. So one of the things that we started to do was candle making, which was really fun for me. I love to light candles, but I also suffer from asthma. So I had to find products that worked for me that didn't cause headaches or irritate my respiratory system. So that's really how it got started. We made them for ourselves. We gave them to friends and family, and they loved it. So they say, you have something, you can start a business. Kareem said, I think we should start a business. And I honestly had to be convinced. I've never started a business. So I was a little bit scared, but we jumped in, and that's how it all started. That's how we're here today.
That's a great story. Thank you. Raquel, tell us your story. What does your business do and how did you start?
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Raquel Wilson, and I'm so happy to share the stage with you, Taylor, and thank you for having me here. So my name is Raquel Wilson, and I'm a certified financial education instructor. Recently founded Raise the Bar Investments, where we raise the bar for your mind and money. In short, we're a financial literacy education company here to really make financial education relatable and actionable so folks can really build generational wealth. As far as our large-scale goal, we're really here to close the racial wealth gap. If you didn't know, by the end of the century, Black and brown wealth is projected to be at 0. So this is something that we're very passionate about. And for our mission, we donate a portion of our proceeds to youth entrepreneurship and growth for professionals of color. As far as myself, I'm a professional of color. I'm actually a teacher. So teaching through the pandemic is how this business started. This business started in the classroom where personal finance really isn't taught. And that's why I wanted to bring it to the marketplace, bring it to the main stage. So my experiences as a classroom teacher really informed the research and development for this business and really is what is making it relatable and allowing it to really hit folks where it needs to be.
You two have a lot in common. You both started businesses during the pandemic, businesses that were personal to you, and you're both running your businesses while still working at your full-time jobs. So you have a lot in common, even though your businesses are different. Taylor, let's talk about your business. You guys have done a great job getting your business name out there. I know you had a feature in apartment therapy, and you're very active on social media. So tell me a little bit about how you found those partnerships, what your approach was. So I'll start there.
Yeah, so I guess like we're still growing our business. We're only 9 months old. We're babies. So so having that outreach is very important. But we've done some really critical things, I think. So one thing is testers, another is pop-ups, and another is just creating to people with an aligned mission. So the first with testers, before we launched our website, we found our target audience and we sent them candles with our final recipe and the packaging that actual customers would receive. We sent it to them complete with a survey and we asked them to post on social media. And we call our community our tribe. And our tribe is freaking amazing. They posted TikToks, they posted IGTV, Reels, all of those things. And it was a really integral thing for us as we started our business because it created brand awareness and brand trust because potential customers could see other people using and receiving our items in a way that they could say, oh, well, that looks good, then I could participate. So it made our launch very successful. And we also talk about, as I said quickly, our target audience. We found different pop-ups in New York City because we wanted to get in front of our audience. So we tried to select things that were aligned with our mission, like artisan markets, things that really appreciate the handcrafted part of our business. And we participated in those things to get across to different markets and get in front of people and just align with people on a mission. So you mentioned our apartment therapy article, which is super great. Well, we connected with the journalist who wrote our awesome story on Instagram. She loves home essentials and we're a home essential business. And I don't know about you, but me in the pandemic, I got my master's degree in HGTV. So I really love that. And we just engaged with her on social media. We ended up getting her emails, sending her our products, and she loved them and decided to write an article. And it's just really a grassroots thing. Try to find people who are connected with you. And that's how we've been able to build out.
That's great. And, Raquel, you spent a lot of time researching your market as well as you developed your business. So can you talk about what that research looked like and what you learned and how that impacted how you formed your business and how you positioned it to meet a need?
Absolutely. So with us being a product-based business, I wanted to make sure that the products that we were developing on the market were going to be useful. We're going to be picked up off the shelves because I had very intentional processes with my research. So I would say intentionality is key, finding out who is your target market? What do they enjoy doing in terms of lifestyle? What locations do they frequent? What are their sources of influence? What are their sources of income? And all of that's really going to help you determine what your market penetration strategy is. And that's useful whether you have a product-based business or a service-based business. I would say that research definitely is important because it really does empower you to meet the needs of your customers. And that's what businesses are anyway. We are solutions to problems within our community. And I know Taylor mentioned target market earlier. Sometimes you can have a target market that looks like yourself. For example, a large part of our target market are fellow Black people, Black women, first-generation college students or first-generation professionals. But also a large part of our target market are people that are not, say, for example, people of color, but also are allies in the mission of closing the racial wealth gap or just learning financial literacy for themselves because it hasn't been taught in the schools as it should be. So I would say research can look like a lot of things: written surveys, in-person questionnaires and conversations at events, pre and post surveys for when you're running programs. But research should definitely be cyclical. It should lead your efforts and it should also close out your efforts so you can continue to make those products and services better. And that's what we've been doing.
When you say intentionality, what specifically did you mean by that? Do you mean like that you don't just conduct research for the sake of conducting it, but rather you go in knowing what kinds of questions you're trying to answer? What did you mean by that?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, I'm a teacher by trade, but I teach biology. So I'm very science based. So always trying to find that qualitative information in terms of, okay, how does this change your mindset towards financial literacy? But also the quantitative numbers, the hard data. For example, how has your credit score changed in relation to personal finance? Or how comfortable do you feel starting a business in relation to entrepreneurship as a way to generate wealth? So I think it's important to be intentional about the qualitative, the detailed information, but also the quantitative, the numerical information that's needed to help with funding as well.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. Taylor, you make handmade candles. So you also sell direct to the customer and you sell at retail. So I guess my question is sort of how did you figure out what your price point should be both directly to the customer and to retailers, and did that get impacted by supply chain issues or inflation and therefore force you to change the plan?
All right. So, our price scale was made out of two things, necessity and knowledge. So, the first is necessity. As I mentioned before, I suffer from asthma. So, in really looking for the materials that we wanted to use, I had to find something that worked for me. So, for me, paraffin wasn't good. All soy wasn't good. It gave me headaches and things. So, I had to find a combination that worked. And the coconut soy wax worked. If there's any Chandlers here watching, you know that coconut soy is not cheap. It's not cheap at all. So it was really just because it didn't make me sick. But then the knowledge portion, Kareem, he worked a lot of his early jobs in luxury retail. And I currently work in luxury fashion. So just understanding the luxury part of the market really helped us to decide that we wanted to like one, the price point because the materials cost a lot of money. Plus it matched up with the knowledge. We understood the aesthetic, we understood the target market and everything. So it was kind of a no-brainer for us to get into that price point. Also in my day job, I do product development and production. So as far as the back end of the cogs, like, you know, all of those things, getting our goods down, all the Excel spreadsheets, that was something that was very familiar to me. So I got to plug in the numbers and see where we were. So that made it easy to be able to market. I understand the retail versus wholesale pricing just automatically again because of my day job work. So that wasn't really a big challenge for me, but it really started with understanding the materials that I wanted to use, the aesthetic that I wanted to pull off, and packaging all of that as I want my customers to receive it.
Thank you. Raquel, let's talk about, you talked about intentionality in terms of researching how to start your business. I assume you're applying the same kind of strategy to planning your future goals. So what are your thoughts about where your business goes next in the next year or so?
I love questions about goals. One of the values of our business is scary goals. That's what the S in Raise the Bar stands for. So I always try to think as big as possible. So 3 areas. Number 1, more events. Relationships is so important to our business, as well as education, obviously being a financial education business. I know upcoming, we have a daylight savings budget masterclass, which I'm super excited for. But I would love to do a college speaking tour, really bring this information to colleges. I even think back on my college journey, and I spent my very first refund check on some shoes, and the power of being able to invest that instead and bring that information to colleges and high schools and organizations across the country is something that we're really looking forward to doing. So more events. I would also say building a team. In the next 3 to 5 years, I really do see Raise the Bar Investments being one of the leading financial education companies in the US, if not internationally. I'm very grateful to see that this book, for example, has sold internationally, and that lets me know that there is a need for this. So now to meet the larger need that there is, I need to build a larger team. And third, I would say really expanding into education technology. Based off of the research that I've done, the e-learning and ed tech fields are booming. And I think that especially serving young people primarily, but I'll say folks 6 to 60 have engaged with our products. But meeting young people primarily, I know that education, technology and doing things digitally and at our fingertips is very important. So I'd love to expand into that area too. But you never know what's coming. We've been in some great situations so far.
Yeah. So you have a plan, but you're also flexible, right? Which sounds like the key. I'm going to ask you both this question. I'll start with Taylor. You both work full-time jobs still while running your businesses. So Taylor, tell me how, and I think a lot of our audience is probably in the same situation, how do you balance those two things? How do you know when it's time to focus on work versus focus on your business?
Yeah, so balance is not real. It's not it's not something that you could attain no matter how much you think that you can. I think a lot of times we think that we can focus on a bunch of things and give it 100% when we focus on it at one time, but that's not true. We have to take specific times and focus on specific things when we can. When it comes to Kareem and I, like you mentioned, we both work, we have full-time jobs. We have our families and all of those things to manage. Plus, we're in a relationship. So the best that we can do is just split off our time. I'm privileged to have a hybrid work schedule. So I work from home for some of the week. On those days, I'm waking up at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I'm handling Tribe and Oak business until I start my normal work day. When the work day is over and on the days that Kareem is coming over, then we'll have dinner and we're focusing on Tribe and Oak stuff. We're sending emails, we're running the social media, shooting social media content, packaging orders, all of those things to keep the business running. But then there's some days where we're just like, nope, I don't want to do anything. And we sit and fall asleep on the couch and watch reality TV. And although cliche, like I said, we're in a relationship, so we also prioritize date nights. So it's really just understanding that we can't do everything at one time, but when we are focused on a thing, we're giving that thing 100%, and then we try to make a plan to make sure that we're hitting everything else that we need to make sure everything is still covered.
That's great. Same question for you, Raquel.
Well, I would say I'm very privileged and blessed that my job and business both align in my area of passion and ministry, education. But I will say, don't allow one area to make you complacent in another. For example, yes, there's overlap in the fact that I'm in education, but I can't allow myself as a teacher to stop myself from growing as an entrepreneur, or I can't allow growth in scaling my business make me afraid to move laterally or negotiate. For example, this is my last semester in the classroom because I've learned a lot of great things in that space, and I'm very much so grieving leaving the classroom. But I'm excited to now be in a space this summer where I'm going to be working with development and still in education. And I know there was an audience question around like developing and funding your business. I think it's important to find a mix of your passion, what fills you as a person, but also what's going to give you those transferable skills that can help you in your business or in that next phase of life. Always thinking forward.
I'm glad you brought that question up because I was about to ask it of you. So you answered it, and I'm going to ask Taylor the same question. Did you guys seek funding, or have you been bootstrapping it for your business, Taylor?
Bootstrapping it all the way. We don't have family adding funding. We have not yet to get grant funding, or not yet to get other investors funding. So it's just been out of our pockets, and it's been hard. Just kind of going back to, you asked about the supply chain. That was a really, really big hit to our business. And there were times where we thought like we might not be able to carry it forward. Our business is only 9 months. So it is a baby, and we weren't really freaking out. But I think because of the pandemic, it kind of exasperated some things that other companies take a year or two to experience. We kind of experienced them like very early on. So yeah, we've just been using our money and, participating in pop-ups, building our social media so that we can get consistent online orders to keep carrying us through.
Taylor, while I have you, do you have, in our last 30 seconds, what's your best piece of advice for someone else just starting out?
Stick it through. Okay, in 30 seconds. Stick it out. Go with your gut. You know what you have. You know what you can put forward. Go with your gut. Like I mentioned, it was really hard. We almost quit, but we didn't quit, and we saw some major things. Like we talked about before, we got the apartment therapy article, and that was 2 weeks ago. We've gotten about 60 online orders since then, which is really major for us. We've got featured on Facebook by Black Guides and DJ Nice and Damon John from Shark Tank. They posted our materials or our products on their By Black Guide, which is really cool. We had a huge pop-up during the holidays from Thanksgiving to the beginning of Christmas, and we grossed like $10,000 in sales. So we were struggling for a while, but we stuck it through. We kept bootstrapping, and now we're talking to you guys. So stick it out, go with your gut, and you can do a whole lot more than you probably think.
Thank you. And Raquel, same question for you. What's your best piece of advice for someone just starting their business now?
I would say keep it as authentic as possible. Know who you are, know your values. The personal values that I have, as well as the values of Raise the Bar, are relationships, action, integrity, scary goals, and excellence. Whenever I'm having a moment in my personal life or in my business life where I don't know what to do, as Taylor said, you'll never find balance, but you can have your guiding star through your values. So keep it authentic. That's what's provided Raise the Bar, this platform. And I think that no matter if you're someone that's starting a business, already in your business, or just looking for personal finance information, being authentic to who you are and your values, that's going to really help you get to where you need to be.
That's great advice. Thank you. Before I let you go, I'm just curious to see who actually is in our audience. So audience, let's have you tell us who you are. Our question is, how long have you been in business? So audience, go ahead and take that poll right now. Oh, we have more than 5 years, just starting out too. So it's a pretty good mix. I think a lot of people, no matter where they are in their journey, can relate to the things that you said. So thank you to both of you. You gave great advice. I loved hearing your stories. I know the audience did too. I wish you both the best of luck, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon. You guys take care.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so the next part of our conversation is going to focus on how people who are just starting a business can write and develop a strong business plan. And for those of you who are already running your business, just remember that a business plan is a living document and not something you write once and then you don't look at again. So even if you've been in business for a few years, as I know many of you have, revisiting your business plan is very important to make sure that it is changing with you. So to talk about business plans, I would like to welcome our next guest. Her name is Hee-Sun Lo, and she is the Director of Programs at the Tory Burch Foundation. Hee-Sun works with emerging entrepreneurs every day, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about that. So she's here today to share her advice and her strategies for writing and maintaining and developing an ongoing excellent business plan. And if you have questions for her, you can answer them on the right-hand side of your screen while I'm interviewing her. So welcome, Hee-Sun. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. So first, just tell everyone about the Tory Burch Foundation, what it is, what you do there, and why how you're interacting with entrepreneurs every day.
Yes, of course. And so while it might be hard to imagine, Tory Burch was in the shoes of many of you in the audience when she first started her business back in 2004. And having a foundation to support women was a part of Tory's original business plan, way before the focus on women we see today. And since its inception in 2009, the foundation supports women's empowerment and women entrepreneurs by providing access to capital, education, digital resources, among other things. And what's really wonderful is that it's really evolved with the needs of our growing community. I joined in 2019 to manage and scale our flagship program, our Fellows program, and we now select 50 women from across the United States for a year-long engagement with us. And we offer access to experts, webinars, capital, a business education grant, and most importantly, a community of amazing founders. And we are continuously expanding our portfolio of offerings, like our free biweekly public webinars, which you may have heard of. And I really see this as just the beginning.
And so as part of your choosing those women to join the Fellows program, you get to see a lot of their business plans. So I think you have particular insight into what makes a great one. So on your website, which we have a link to on the screen where our audience is watching, you offer a free business tool builder. And I know it's recently been improved to have a variety of templates and formats. So just tell us why, in your experience working with entrepreneurs, it's important to have a really good business plan.
Yes. And so we asked thousands of women in our greater community what they needed. And there was an overwhelming ask around help with writing a business plan. And I totally agree. I see it. I see why, because I've been through it myself. When I started my company, it is a daunting process to start. And so we did our research to see what else was out there. And we decided to create these instructive and customizable templates to jumpstart the process, depending on the type of business you are and where you are in that journey. I think in terms of, writing this business plan, planning is the key piece to focus on. And research shows that businesses that plan grow 30% faster than ones that don't. And 71% of fast growing companies have plans. I like to think of it like we're drawing a map of the journey your business will take and understanding what tools, what resources you need along the way. And like with all maps, you want to check where you are during the journey and make changes as you gain more insights. I think Taylor and Raquel like said it perfectly when they were going back, using the research to base their strategy. And if the past couple of years have taught us anything, planning is not a static exercise. Nothing is set in stone. And like you said, Jeanette, it's a living document.
Yeah. So let's just talk. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. What are just the basic qualities of a great business plan?
Sure. And I think this document really is meaningless as a tool without the following three things. I think number one, you want to be objective and specific. You're only really lying to yourself otherwise. And ultimately, this is your time and your resources that you're putting in to build this business of yours. Number two, which was also mentioned before, was ground your plan in research. This is the evidence to support your plan. Who's come before you? Who are your competitors? And what exists in the world that plays in your favor and also could be your downfall? Like where are your risks? And how does all of this inform your strategy? And I think last but not least, and most importantly, in my opinion, it's so key to communicate your why. Why does your business need to exist? And why should you be the person or team to do it?
So you said your first item was be both objective and specific. Can you just clarify what you mean by that?
Totally. I think it's one of those things where especially in the beginning, when we're starting our business, we all have these idealistic, dreamlike ambitions, which are wonderful and will really kind of be that fuel that gets you through all of the ups and downs of building and growing your business. But it is important to know that what you're saying is not overreaching, or that it is not coming from a place that is grounded in data. Meaning, if you ask your mother what they think of what you're building versus if you ask your true customer what you are building, you're going to get different answers. And it's important, as great as it might feel, to listen to what your mom is saying, that your customer is the one who's going to give you money. The customer is going to be the one who is valuing whatever product or service that you have. And that's what I mean by being objective and specific.
Thank you for clarifying that. Do you think that a business owner or prospective business owner should have just one business plan, because it's really important to have this very clear vision that you don't deviate from? Or should they have multiple versions of their business plan because they're serving different audiences? Like they serve different purposes, maybe one for a potential lender and one for a potential partner. So what are your thoughts on that?
You will definitely have many versions of your business plan because, like you said, again, this is a living document. And so when you first write this could be on a napkin, as some have famously been. And for that moment, that could be the blueprint that really starts it all. But eventually, this is going to be the base for what you present to potential partners, investors, other key players in building your business. And understandably, a napkin is not going to cut it. And all of those different people are going to want different elements of information to convince them. And so there are two questions that's going to play a part in what business plan versions will look like. And it's one, who's looking at it? Is it a potential retailer? Is it an investor? Because they're going to be interacting with your business in different ways. And number two, where are you in your business? If you're really early, you might not have that much data to share. But if you're several years in, the audience being either, a potential partner or a potential investor, et cetera, is going to have higher expectations as to how and why they should hop on your ship.
Okay. Do you think, I know that your new business plan builder has different templates and also different formats, but how important do you think design is? And by design, I mean partly, what it looks like in terms of graphics or images, but also how it's laid out. Does it matter, or is it just the content that matters?
It really is both. And having read hundreds of business plans at this point, I've seen so many situations where something can look incredibly beautiful, but not say anything meaningful, and vice versa, where the essence of the content is incredibly compelling, but the lack of design is very distracting. And so I'm not getting convinced. And to kind of expand on that more, it's what that tells me when there's a lack of design is that the founder might not have the ability to get the message across to the intended audience. That clarity in the communication is not there. And so for me, at least, design is really how we communicate the content. And so they really go hand in hand.
Great. This, I think, is a tricky question, so I hope that you can help us. How much personal information should someone include in their business plan? I think people struggle with how much to talk about themselves.
Definitely. And honestly, I actually think in the previous segment, Taylor and Raquel did it perfectly. And it's because it goes back to communicating your why. Because the question is around relevance. Does it matter? Do these details about your personal life or your personal story matter? If it's linked to your why you should be doing this or why you are compelled to start this business, then you should definitely share it. Like, did you start it out of your own personal pain point, or are you uniquely positioned as a business because of your background or experience? And it's not really unlike what you might share in a job interview, for example. So when I was on the investor side of things, I was definitely more interested if you had a personal edge. So for example, you started an allergen-free lunchbox subscription for young kids, and you were also a mom who used to be a chef and ran a large operation with an overlapping target demographic. I definitely want to learn more. And like Taylor was saying, she had the allergy that the asthma she was working with. Raquel was talking about how she's in education. And so that really informs a lot of the ways that she's building her business. And so again, those are personal details, but they're so relevant to their business and why they are the right person to be building these businesses.
So I think that's a great litmus test. If you can connect the dots between your why and your personal experience, then it belongs there. If there's no connection between the two, then maybe it doesn't.
Exactly.
My last question to you is I know you see a lot of business plans. Do you see any sort of common mistakes that people make frequently?
Yeah, I think it's a simple one, but I do see it very often. It's really kind of staying away from absolutes. And so what I mean by that is things like, we have zero competition, there's no one like us, or we're the best X in the world. And the reason why I say stay away from these is they're rarely true. And even if it is true, there's a much more powerful way to illustrate this. Through data, really. If you are the best, then show me your numbers. If you have zero competition, then prove that to me. But when it comes to things like that, you are generally always displacing something, or you are overlapping in some way. And it's important for you to recognize that and share as to why this will or will not matter in the growth of your business.
I have a couple audience questions for you. This person asks, how long should you spend studying your customer base and building your marketing strategy before you launch? So do you recommend that people know exactly what they're doing before they launch, or do you feel like it's okay to start and then figure it out as you go?
I think it's a mix, and it depends to a certain degree, in that I really love the testing the market, the iterating on your product piece. And I think the entrepreneurs both actually spoke to that. They were sending boxes with the packaging, with the surveys before they quote unquote launched. But that is already a soft launch, right? You're getting information, and that feedback loop is already happening. And it's one of those things where it's not it's not as much of a ta-da moment. It's really, the market research can be start of your launch process. And it's about at what point do you feel like you have enough data to give you the confidence to do this in a bigger way.
Great. We didn't really this question is something we actually really didn't touch on, I don't think. And it's asking about communicating core values. And we didn't talk about whether a company's values belong in its business plan. So I would define values as saying not necessarily what you do, but more what your company stands for and maybe how you do it, right? So maybe it's that your products are ethically sourced or something like that. So what are your thoughts about including your company values in your business plan?
I think having in your business plan is great. I think it really, again, this is the map of the journey that your business is going to take. And so having those guiding principles as a part of that map, I think it is positive. I think what I would say is the most important thing is the authenticity that comes behind those core values that are written in your plan. Is that something that you are going to stand by as your business grows? Because there will be decision points where it might be easier to stray from that. And so making sure that you are evaluating that as you kind of incorporate these core values into your business plan, and making sure that you can really stick by what you say that you're doing. I think that authenticity really matters, and your customers really care about that now more than ever.
Okay, I think we're going to leave it there, but stay with me for a second, Hisan, because we're going to do another poll. And I just want to get the audience's take on what they think makes a good business plan. So we asked them what one or two words create a strong business plan. So clarity, research, intentionality, clear goals, the pitch and the theme, adapting to change. So I think a lot of the things that we covered here.
Definitely.
Yes. So Hisan, I want to thank you very much. I think this was super helpful. And to our audience, just a reminder that you can go find that business plan builder on the Toria Birch Foundation website, and we have a link on the page. So goodbye, Hisan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we are going to shift gears for our final segment, and we're going to hear from a founder whose plan paid off big time and earned him huge success. In 2018, Hanif Brown founded the retail technology company called FitMatch. FitMatch makes it easier for customers to find their fit in clothing, and we'll explain a little bit more about how. So the idea is catching on, and FitMatch now has partnerships with major shopping malls and with brands like Fenty and Fabletics. So he sat down with our very own Barbara Thau, our Co Senior Features Editor, to share his advice and tell his business's story. So we're going to watch that now.
Thank you for joining us to kick off this new series. I'm Barbara Thau, Senior Features Editor for Co. Good to be with you today. Our Grow session features entrepreneurs who've scaled their businesses, and they're here to share how they've turned into powerhouse brands, sharing their tips, their trials, and their wins with you. Today, we're going to take a look at the success of Hanif Brown, who is the founder and CEO of FitMatch. In 2019, FitMatch's full body scanning studios debuted in Brookfield Malls, one of the largest mall developers in the country. So that's huge. They've now become a multi-million-dollar business, and it's been quite a 4-year journey for them. I am so pleased to welcome founder and CEO of FitMatch, Hanif Brown. Thank you for being here, Hanif. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me. Much appreciated.
Oh, so let's start out by telling us what precisely is FitMatch in terms of what the technology does.
Absolutely. So we are a B2B, so a business to business technology platform where we enable brands to find and to recommend the best fitting products for their customers, for their shoppers. We leverage 3D technology into smartphones, where customers can actually give their information over to the brand in a pretty seamless way. And then we work with the brand to understand their inventory, their garment specs, etc., to provide that shopper with a personalized recommendation, so they don't have to do any guesswork around finding the right size.
I'm curious about, before founding FitMatch, you started out working in investment banking and private equity as a retail specialist, and you saw the inconvenience and the headaches shoppers face when returning clothes, but you had a personal attachment to this headache as you were experienced returning clothes for your mother. I'd love to hear about how that played into your origin story, as well as how it, how it inspired the actual model, your business model.
Yeah, absolutely. So out of school, I worked in investment banking, but specifically in retail. And then I worked in private equity for a firm that invests solely in retail businesses. And so private equity is pretty unique because you have to basically understand everything you can about a company in under a month and then value that company. So you have to understand how the company works, the competitors, the landscape, the challenges, the opportunities. So it's really a skill. So whilst doing that for about 8 or 9 years, I kept coming across this issue of this inefficiency in the retail market. Whereas e-commerce was growing, so was the return issue. And so it's one thing to read about it on paper or in P&Ls or in spreadsheets. It's a whole other thing to actually see it happen in real time. My cousin thought it was a good idea to buy clothes for my mom. And so my mom, of course, nothing fit. And so my mom turned to me and asked me to return it for her. And on the way to return it to the retailer, who I won't name, I got stuck in traffic and I actually missed a meeting for work.
Returns have become a huge issue in retail. So, and I'm going to look at my cheat sheet here. Product returns have become such an expense for brands amid the rise in online shopping that retail returns accounted for $761 billion in merchandise sales last year, according to the National Retail Federation. But what that says is that $761 billion is really in lost sales, right? So I'm curious how FitMatch positions its business to solve a market problem.
We are starting with saying, look, the old way of trying on so many clothes or the old way of guessing based on some obscure sizing chart, what if we provide you a better data-driven way to do it? And if we can cut that time down, so we can make you order what you need to order in 10% of the time. And for the brands, we know that once they ship it to you, they're more confident. That will result in higher conversions because you're more confident about your purchase decision. You are more likely to stay with that brand if it fits. So it increases the long-term value of your purchase. And then, of course, all of that leads to less returns. But it starts with the consumer experience.
So you took a really interesting sort of side door route to getting into retail by first getting the attention and then buy-in in a local market, in the Miami market, from so you got from notable designers in Miami. I'm curious how that unfolded.
Yeah, absolutely. So after private equity in New York, moved down to South Florida to start building out the project as well as the company to date. Before that, I actually did a short stint at Cornell in Ithaca, where I sort of learned a lot of the technology. So I had to sort of say, what's the most unique way to sort of bring consumers in? And that also coupled with how am I going to convince brands to basically give me their data and their product? And so in Miami, I said, okay, well, I know consumers want newness. I know shoppers want the next thing that someone else doesn't wear. So I started contacting local designers and brands, but even then that was challenging, right? Because I said, they don't know me, they don't know the brand, they don't know FitMatch, they don't know the technology. So I met someone who, and I just cold called her and tried to network with her, who ran Miami Fashion Week, Beth. She ran Miami Fashion Week for several years. And so I convinced her, I said, hey, you have the ear of these designers locally. How about you help me try to recruit them to this platform? So of course, we're down in Miami, and I was able to convince a leasing manager that ran one of Brookfield's largest properties in Coral Gables, Merrick Park, to give me some space. And so she did. She took a big bet. She thought that the technology would appeal to a younger customer, a more tech-savvy user than opening another, again, you know, old retailer. And so she gave us a chance. And so the two came together, again, very coincidentally, as this story will continue to unfold. And the brands agreed through Beth. Brookfield agreed through this leasing manager who had a vision for this. And we opened our doors, and the rest is sort of history.
So then you had a light bulb moment that prompted FitMatch to pivot your business from I'll say B2B, a marketplace model, I think that's fair to say, to a B2B model where you are working directly with the brands. I'd love to hear more about that light bulb moment.
So Brookfield actually caught wind of what we were doing in Coral Gables in South Florida and said, hey, like, we're looking for tech savvy, next generation retail concepts that are about experiences. How about we roll this out, or help you roll this out across the country? So that was a light bulb moment where we said, wow, like, we know the customer need is there. How about we now start partnering with larger retailers and brands to do it within their ecosystem?
So I'm curious about how the pandemic accelerated FitMatch's business.
It was huge. It was huge. I mean, overnight, a lot of the pitch that we made, a lot of the idea, people were like, wow, this is a no-brainer. You're talking about the fact that we were out there pitching, never have to try on clothes again as our tagline. And then suddenly fitting rooms started to close. So people didn't have the opportunity to try on clothes. A lot of these businesses, their models changed overnight. Stores were being closed. E-commerce was growing. And so they now had, one, more returns, quite frankly. And then two, a bigger need to pull in technology that was always 5 years out.
I'm curious about funding. So, what were the funding challenges that you faced, and how did you tackle them? And I'm also adding, you and I have discussed that the challenges for minority funders, for minority entrepreneurs, I should say, and it's, the statistics are there. Black and Latino entrepreneurs, for one, receive a near 2.6% of the funding.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I will say is it's really twofold. Firstly, our business requires capital. We are building up and down the tech stack. We're relying on new technologies such as LiDAR and augmented reality and artificial intelligence. I wish those three things were inexpensive, but they are really not inexpensive. And what I mean by that is you need talent, you need R&D, you need infrastructure developed. And so from a personal standpoint, from the FitMatch lens, our business does need capital before it starts to grow. The second issue is, obviously, as you brought out, I don't have a traditional, I'm not in the Silicon Valley scene. I don't have uncles and aunts with a lot of money that I can say, hey, I'm starting a business. Could you give me, $500,000? And by the way, chances are you won't get back your money for sometimes ever, and then sometimes for 10 years. And obviously, folks that look like me, we don't have that opportunity. So you'll hear in a second, of course, that a lot of our capital raising is from the brands themselves, not from these traditional VCs, because they're aligned with us solving this, right? And that's super important in how you choose to raise. You can raise from people who are sort of financial engineers, as I sort of like to say, or you can raise from people who are pretty invested in your success, because if you figure it out, you help them on their business side as much as you give them a great return.
I'm curious how the Savage and Fenty partnership, how you landed that.
We struck a partnership with Cornell around the patent that was developed there by this individual, our chief data scientist. And so at the same time, we were now visible, Barbara, where retailers are asking us to come and do this for them. the pandemic is dragging on. Brands that are focused on innovation are investing more into technology. So we opened a pop-up under Brookfield in LA, coincidentally, and Savage by Fenty is based in LA. And so we started to have conversations with them about their vision, what they anticipated, where they want to take their brand. And they've always been at the cutting edge of innovation, from their inclusivity movements to how they market. And we felt that a partnership with them, and a really deep and aligned one, was the best way to sort of take our product and our technology to the next level.
And so if you had to zero in on one insider tip, and you hinted at it already, for businesses looking for a game-changing partnership that's, such as what you're doing with Savage and Fenty, and that helps you, it's helping you scale and taking the business to a new level. What is that?
I always say it comes down to people, right? And even in our business of the B2B technology platform, we are having conversations with people, executives within brands. So you have to basically understand, and this is why I believe I'm uniquely positioned to run FitMatch, is because in private equity, I worked alongside operators. I know how they think. I know their challenges. I know why they don't like vendors at times, and why visionaries within the organization love certain types of technologies. But the more connections you can have with people, the more you can understand why they want something like this, is the better you are able to sort of pitch it to them and hone in on developing the product that suits their needs.
What's next for FitMatch growth-wise, number one? And my final question, your best leadership tip today for entrepreneurs looking to embark on a business venture?
Well, we have a lot of embedded growth just with our investors right now. In fact, Fabletics is also an investor in our company. That's a whole other category we're super excited about. We've already done some of our base work there, but that's to come as well. So not only Savage growing with our technology, Savage by Fenty growing with our technology, but Fabletics is to come, and there's a pipeline after them that we're super excited about launching too. So just a lot more B2B brand partnerships on the horizon, and a lot more products associated with those launches. On the tip, I would come back to, I hate to sound like a broken record, people. I think a process or an approach that tries to circumvent people, and I am the complete opposite. I believe that if you find the right relationship, if you work hard on researching your end market and who's at the other side of the table, chances are the person you align with to get to that end goal is going to help you way more than all the hard work you could have done. And so as I look at our success to date, it has all come down to the people we've brought on, the people we have aligned with, and obviously the team that we've built.
I want to thank you for this. It's been a delight.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for listening and asking such great questions. And as I said, we're super excited about what's to come.
That was such a great interview from Barbara and Hanif. Thank you both so much. I love that his advice all boiled down to people. I think that's a great takeaway for all of us. Thank you to Taylor, Raquel, Hisan, and Hanif for joining us today for our first episode of Co Start, Run, Grow. And again, I want to thank our supporting sponsors, Dell, FedEx, Iron Mountain, MetLife, and Oracle NetSuite for helping bring us today's program. We hope you'll check out the website resources we curated especially for you. They're located at the bottom of your screen, and they'll be coming to you in your email inbox soon. And please let us know about how we did by taking our audience survey on the right-hand side of your screen. That's it for us. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Start, Run, Grow, and we hope you will join us on April 7th for the next episode, which will be focused on helping business owners like you weather financial uncertainty. We'll see you all soon. Take care.